All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast. And today we are starting the summer series with a bang. We are talking to a young woman who is incredibly resilient and had to navigate well-meaning family that might not have given the best advice, and also the incentive of a jet ski, Ben. Is that too big to ignore? What else do we cover?
Well, Bryce, this is a story of focus, determination, and where you get your advice from. Even if it's well-meaning from some parties, you probably learn it's best to get your advice from professionals. So it is a great show to start off the summer series.
Folks, this is summer series. It's the best time of the year. Let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance, and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast. And of course, Ben, welcome. This most amazing time of the year. Welcome to the first episode of the summer series, mate.
Well, mate, it's summer. You know, you wouldn't know it in Australia, but or Melbourne for that matter. But no, it is. It's warmed up a bit. I've got the short sleeve shirt on.
Yeah.
You know, we're now into the summer period.
Yeah.
So it's exciting time. What is this, our 7th or 8th summer series? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, one of those. Or as the kids would say, 6 or 7, 6 or 7.
Well, 6, 7, 6, 7, as my boys would say.
So, mate, it's a wonderful time of the year, and we're really looking forward to what will be a remarkable season of the summer series, folks. I can promise you there is something in it for everyone. We've got the guys, we've got the gals, we've got the different demographics, Ben. We've got the landing at the plane. We've got those people who've got cautionary tales. We've got a real smorgasbord of conversations. So wherever you are, camping, fishing, overseas, interstate, spending time with your family, taking some well-earned rest, we promise you these stories are amazing, Ben.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, even if you're still finishing the working year at the start of December, there's still plenty that we want to talk about as well. So hang around to the end of the show. We've got a couple of updates, but there's also some big news that we want to share with you in 2026. So there's a little teaser in terms of letting you know about some big news for the podcast for next year. We've got the survey results back, and we've got a few changes that are going to come. So you'll have to wait around. We're going to announce it on New Year's Day as part of the summer series. So, yes, big news, right, Bryce? Big news, right, Bryce?
Well, big news. You're giving a few hints there, Ben. But, it's definitely some changes afoot. So stick around for that, folks, as Ben said, on the 1st of Jan. But we've got a wonderful conversation that we want to share with you today. We spoke to a very, very bright, articulate, amazing young woman. Her name is Alannah. She's got a very, very good story to tell. Let's cut to the interview you and I recently had with Alannah Jane. All right, Ben, we've got a very special guest today on this episode of the summer series. We are chatting with TPC listener. Her name is Alannah Jane Bazina. Welcome to the Property Couch, Alannah.
Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Ben.
Yay!
How exciting. Thanks for chatting with us. And today's conversation falls into the category of protection, community service announcement, coming back from an experience that you wish you hadn't had. But I think there's some really cool parts of your story that I think our audience will get a lot out of. But you know where we're going to go, Alannah. We want to get to know you. We want to know where your money habits were formed. Did you have conversations about money over the dinner table?
We did, but I think growing up, I grew up in, I'd say, a middle-class family. But the struggle, I'm the oldest of 3, and a bit more in tune probably with the day-to-day, being a bit more of an anxious person. So although it wasn't overly discussed, I was really conscious and aware that my parents worked really hard and at times did have money struggles. I've got memories like going on a holiday, my parents gave us everything we needed. But, you know, there were times that we had friends with one child and they were getting the most expensive ice cream. And my dad would say, hey, guys, we'll just get one from Woolies if that's okay on the way home. So there was little indicators like that although we had everything we needed, like money was on the top of my parents' mind. And then, I worked as soon as I could. And my parents helped me with saving and that kind of stuff. But it was discussed over the dinner table but I'd say coming from a European household, it's not something that you openly discuss.
So let's build some context around that. So your folks were first generation or second generation?
They're first generation.
First generation. So
yeah,
their struggles is to basically set up in a new country and get some foundation. So do they share some of those stories about?
Sorry, Ben. They're second generation. My grandparents are first generation.
Okay, right. Yeah. So in terms of them building out their story with their family, and that's obviously the 3 kids there, what were some of the things you were noticing about their work behaviours and that you knew that things weren't quite right?
Well, my dad worked away a lot. So he worked overseas, especially growing up. So my parents had 3 kids under 3. And 3 weeks of every month, my dad would be overseas working in Asia. And so my mum raised us, when we were little. So always had a really tough work ethic, and my parents were both the first kids on both sides to go to university. So I think they really, and my mum's a teacher, my dad's he was a business development manager, and he worked in the mines. So we just saw them work really hard and have to make a lot of sacrifices. Like, they never had fancy things, they never had brand new cars, but we always had what we needed, and we had a really good childhood. But my parents, we didn't have things like Foxtel and that kind of stuff. So when you go to other kids' households and they're watching Nickelodeon and Disney, they're the kind of little things as a kid, you're like, oh, okay, why don't we have that? Which sounds silly, but now, like, looking back and talking with my friends, they had similar kind of experiences.
And were you, let's give people context, you're Melbourne-based or Victorian-based?
Yep, Melbourne-based, yeah.
Always been that way? Did your parents move around at all, when they were settling down?
Yeah, we actually did. We moved to a little town. So my dad was working in the mines at the time. And so when I was, I think, 1.5, we moved to a little town called Muswellbrook. I think it's about an hour from Newcastle. Yep. And then as I was starting primary school, my mum didn't want me to grow up or go to school in Muswellbrook. So we moved back to Melbourne, and Dad followed soon after.
You said something before that oldest of 3, you're an anxious person. Did I hear that right? And how did that play out in terms of you sort of developing your habits around money and what you observed from your parents?
Yeah, I think I'm just really hyper aware. So I was always kind of scanning the room for moods or scanning the room for just demeanor of everyone I was with. And I noticed that when my parents were stressed about money, that was really evident to me. Yep. And, although they tried their best to kind of, I think, be discreet or not show it in front of us kids, but I knew. And so from a very young age, I didn't want to be in the position that I was kind of worried that much about money. We went through phases as well. Like, at times, obviously, it wasn't as stressful, but then when it was stressful, like I said, although that they didn't want to show it, it was evident to me that money stress and financial was on their mind. So,
and you take on that responsibility of the oldest in the group, and you're seeing and observing quite well. Well done on sort of those observational behavioural observations that you had. So, did you start a part-time job? And I suspect someone of a nature of your own, were you willing to sort of, offer some, support to your parents as well when you started to earn, some of that income if you did start a part-time job?
Yeah, so I started working as soon as I could. I think 14 and 9 months on the dot. Yeah. I started looking. Dad helped me. I went to my local Woolies, and they had positions back in the day where you could just hand in your resume and talk to the manager, which was good. So I started there. I worked. My parents were in a position where they didn't need me to contribute anything. Like, they didn't want me to pay for any board or anything. It wasn't like that. It was more just because they wanted to provide us the best with everything. It was just noticeable when they couldn't do that for whatever reason. Yeah. So, but at a very young age, my parents forced me to save, I can't remember if it was 70% or 50% of all my pay straight away. And they had control of that account. So I could have fund money, but then half of it went away. And the deal was that at the time, the 15-year-old, you're kind of thinking about your first car. So my parents said, whatever you save, we'll match it. So if you don't want to save any money and you only want to save $500, then that's all you get from us for your car. If you save $5,000, then we'll match that. That was their promise to me.
And all the kids knew the rules around that. Like, when your parents told that story to you, were they saying that to your siblings?
They did, but I think my brother and sister got it. They didn't get the same deal. My sister got her car bought, and
direction, a better one.
So
Sorry? A better deal or a worse deal, your brothers?
Better deal.
Yeah.
I think they got a better deal.
Yeah.
But that's
That's the curse of the firstborn, isn't it?
definitely the curse of the firstborn. And I think as well, like, and this is, I think classic firstborn. As I'm 2 years older than my sister, 3 years older than my brother. So I could see, especially when I was getting a bit older, that my parents were a bit more comfortable financially, which obviously
Yeah.
that relieved a lot of pressure. So they were able to do that kind of stuff for my brother and my sister as well. And in saying, I know I've probably said we'll stress about money, but like they were able to also offer my brother and sister. They played baseball for Australia, both of them. So
Wow.
they worked really hard to be able to send them overseas to tournaments and that kind of stuff. So they made heaps of sacrifices, but we could see the fruits of their labour, even if it meant that we couldn't have something that seemed really important at the time.
And Alannah, did you remember going in and setting up those two bank accounts, one for the fund money and one for the savings? Or, do you distinctly remember that, sort of trip to the bank?
Yeah, because I had my savings with my mum's bank at the time, and so she kept that one, and then I had my fund money with another bank that I had access to, and they didn't. So I was pretty savvy, like even because I loved business, I loved numbers, so I was into all that. I knew which accounts were easiest for an under 18 to open and everything like that.
Good on you. Good on. Well, what I like about that story is it has a really positive sort of focus, right? So you've been very disciplined about saving money. You worked hard. And what did that lead to in terms of, you were able to buy your first property at 19, which is incredible. Everyone talks about how challenging it is, but you're not that old. So take us through the dialogue that you had, because you talked about your first car. Take us through that sort of process going from first car to then thinking that you've got enough money to get into your first property. And did you get any help from your parents? Tell us that story.
Yeah, so at the time I was especially doing VCE. I think I've been the kind of person that I've always prepared. So I've never, and even to this day, I won't do a presentation last minute. Like my presentation will be done the week before.
Yeah.
So during high school, I had prepared so well for my exams that in the last kind of, few weeks, I worked really a lot and took up shifts and that kind of like, because everyone else was taking kind of cramming study leave.
Yeah.
And then that kind of set me up then, through the summer holidays after school, I worked really, really hard and I was able to save quite a bit of money quite quickly because I was just taking any shift I could.
Yep.
And so my parents had the conversation. It was probably more so my dad. My dad is the more kind of, he was the one who, did all the finances and that kind of stuff. So he had a conversation with me really early on saying, like your money, is great, but sitting there, but you can probably, it's good to start looking at property and that kind of stuff. I think my dad had the best intentions and he still does, but obviously at the time, like, I don't know, you look up to your parents and think that everything they say, they know everything, they're an expert in everything.
Yep.
And so my dad kind of, he was really passionate about this new project in Werribee South, and I didn't really, I was 19, I was just excited that my dad was excited as well. So that's kind of how we got looking. And one of the reasons that I was attracted to that at the time with my little kind of knowledge about property was because there was, I think it was an 18 month or 24-month like settlement. So it allowed me to, I didn't have the full deposit. So it kind of gave me that really like tangible goal being like, okay, I have to have the money by XYZ.
Yep.
And at the time, like I said, I didn't really know much about it. I didn't do much research and I just kind of like, Dad said it was a good idea. So it must be a great idea.
Yep.
And it was exciting and all that kind of stuff.
So tell us a little bit about the opportunity. What was the complex? You gave us a bit of a clue of where it was. How many in the block and what were the selling points? Do you remember that they were telling to you or spruiking to you about why it would make such a good investment?
And also, Alannah, for our interstate listeners, where is Werribee? How would you explain where Werribee is to someone who's in Perth?
So Werribee South is about, say, 30 kilometres from Melbourne CBD. It's a beach. It's next to a beach that no one would visit for a swim. They definitely launch jet skis and boats from there to go fishing because I've done that. And they're and it's all full of fruit farms or vegetable farms. So there was really no residential property apart from probably the houses on farms. So they had built or subdivided, I guess, some land and put two pretty big apartment complexes. I think there are over 100 apartments per complex. And then they had house and land as well. So at the time, that was also when they had just announced I think it was called the Werribee East Education Hub, which they were going to have all these universities, and it was going to be the best thing. And
the pictures looked amazing. In terms of the city of Werribee. This sort of futuristic city. Yeah, it looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, so as a 19-year-old and, thinking, oh, wow, I could be part of this, you're right next to the beach, even though I had no intention of living in it. So that's another thing. It's I was emotional towards it, even though I would never have lived in a one-bedroom apartment. And I remember at the time just also, and this is something that I just reflect on and such a red flag, but they were offering a rebate. So when you signed up, you could either get a brand new Sea-Doo jet ski worth $36,000, or
36,000.
Yeah.
That's unique. I haven't heard that for a while.
Or get $30,000 cash taken off the price of the apartment. So, and this is, I think, showing, although I was pretty switched on, this just shows how immature I was financially, because I was actually, I was like, Dad, that would be cool, having a jet ski. And he said to me, don't you dare, that's not even consideration. So thankfully, that was one mistake I didn't make, to take the jet ski.
So you took the cash, the $30,000 cash. So what do we pay for this one better?
We paid $360,000.
Yep. And circa year?
That was 2018. 2016, I signed the sale documents, and then it settled in 2018.
Okay. Right. Settled 2018. Okay. Interesting. All right. So you settled the property. You worked really hard to continue to build up your deposit. You're continuing your studies. You move into a commerce area of those studies. Rented straight away? Were you able to secure a tenant straight away?
Yeah, I was lucky. I did live in it for a bit. Just initially, and then my sister actually lived in there. So I didn't really. So my first kind of year and a half was a really good experience, because it was my little sister moving in there. My sister was the kind of person, she moved out straight away when she was 18. So she moved into there, and it helped me out a bit as well. So she was a really good tenant.
So you bought it as a principal place of residence?
Yes, at the time.
Okay.
Yep.
So you got the first homeowners grant and exemptions. Excellent. Great work.
Yeah, that was the intention of just kind of living it for a year. It was never long term. But then, my sister wanted to live in it. So I thought, okay, great, you can live in there. That's even better. And then she moved out. I think it was about a year and a half afterwards. It might have been 2 years, actually, that she lived in there. And then I got, I had my first experience with a real tenant, which was not like my sister.
Okay. We're going to double click on this.
I guess for our audience to learn something here, if someone's offering you a brand new Sea-Doo jet ski, there's obviously a reason why. And look, if anyone's going to live in a one-bedroom apartment in Victoria, they probably want to go to Paran or South Yarra or Richmond or Carlton or somewhere amongst all of the vibes. So that's why I was really keen for you to set up the scene on where Werribee is for those people who aren't familiar, because it's a long way out. Like, I passed Werribee on my way into Melbourne when I'm driving from Torquay. It's halfway. It's got a big zoo, and as you say, it's got all the market gardens and the farms and all that sort of stuff. But you're not thinking, oh, geez, I want to move out of home, unless it's your sister and there's an incentive because it's you. But typically, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to move out of home and move to Werribee in a one-bedroom. It's normally, if you're moving out to Werribee, you want space and you want to live in a house. And even then, the infrastructure wasn't built out at the time. So this is an important lesson, and we don't want it to be lost. And it's one of the reasons why Alannah's agreed to come on and share it with our audience, is because it's important. Because there's lots of, I always say that the plane uses most of its fuel when it takes off, and when it levels out, doesn't use as much. And that's the challenge that you have when you're buying for the first time, isn't it, Alannah? That you're just using so much emotional capital on getting in the game, and which one should I buy, and how do I get the finance, and 18 to 24 month settlement, which means I've got more time to save up a deposit. Like, there's just so much that's coming at you. Sometimes it can be easy to forget some of the basics, which is location does 80% of the heavy lifting. And if someone's going to buy a one-bedroom apartment, they're generally not going to buy it in Werribee.
I think that was the issue for me, to be honest, Bryce. I didn't know the basics. So I was just, and I think if I had my time again, I would not take everyone's opinions like so literally. So I think as a 19 or, a fresh 19-year-old, I was very impressionable. And although everyone had the best interest or, my best interest at heart,
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, what I didn't realize at the time is that they're not actually experts in that field.
They're enthusiastic
Yeah.
amateurs. You don't have to be in the game selling property to people to be an enthusiastic amateur. You can be a well-meaning parent or auntie or cousin or friend to still qualify as an enthusiastic amateur. And I think it's important. But you got in the game and you're 19. But I think that's something that I just want to make sure that people get at this point. You are in sensory overload when you are buying your first property. And there's not many things that come out of the Collingwood Football Club, but I do remember one thing that Eddie Maguire said, and he goes, experience is that thing you get 2 minutes after you need it. And I've never forgotten that line that he said. And it's kind of the same for people who are buying their first property all across this country. Experience is that thing you get 2 minutes after you need it, because you actually have to get into the game before you get the experience to realise, hey, was that a good decision or not? But hopefully podcasts and information is a bit more free-flowing now. But we'll get to the second part of your story later, Alannah, but how we dance with the devil. But you said then that the first real tenant, non-blood tenant, gave you an introduction to the world of investing. Talk to us more about that.
Yeah, she was, I think because of the location, you're not talking about professionals are going to the city and that kind of, in Werribee, we do have, in Hoffers Crossing and Werribee, there's a lot of shops and that kind of stuff. So I had a young tenant, and at the time as well, I thought, oh, she's, my age, I'm responsible, that'd be a good idea to have someone young in their first rental. It wasn't. It's pretty much damaged, and that was all, all my money was going in towards that place, and to go in there after she had moved out. I also didn't have a great property manager, very lazy.
Because the story starts with the property manager, right? And that's their job to hopefully find. Do you recall how easy it was and how many applicants you did get once you signed up with your property manager and they advertised it for lease?
It was pretty quick. I remember being pretty quick. But again, I think because I was just so young and inexperienced, I was just more focused on getting someone in there to start paying rent versus are they, a really good tenant? Do they have good history? Will they give me trouble? I probably didn't realise what the trouble would be because it was my sister and I living in there previously. So, quick, but I don't know how many applicants, Ben.
Okay.
I can't remember.
This was the one that was presented to you and recommended. And
yes.
And so they were working locally, they were living locally, but unfortunately, she didn't take good care of the property.
Did you have any anxiety about whether you'd actually get one once your sister moved out, or did you feel confident that there was a market for it?
No, I was anxious. I think, but at the time, again, because I'm just such an anxious person, I just worry about everything. I was just worried. Obviously, I had also moved into banking at that time. So I moved into banking when I was 19. So it was just after the property had settled. So my income was a little bit better as well. So I was anxious, but it wasn't. I knew that I had enough money to kind of cover it for a little bit. But obviously, that means you're not saving anymore if you're covering your mortgage and not having a tenant. So there was a bit of anxiety for sure.
Gotcha. So that tenant comes through. Tell us, because there was a journey, and it'd be great for you to tell the audience whether you kept it or whether you sold it. But tell us a bit about the journey after, tenants, new tenants. That one moved out. You were spending all your money on it. What were some of the other sort of ups and downs that you were experiencing?
Yeah, so the tenant at the time, the first tenant was really traumatic, damaged property, holes in walls, that kind of stuff. We had to do heaps of repairs. I had cigarette burns in the floorboards. I'm talking that kind of damage.
Wow.
Horrible. And I luckily I've got a really supportive family. They all helped. We all repaired it. And Dad has friends who are able to do floorboards and that kind of stuff. And then I was really lucky actually because I got a really good tenant. I changed property managers and I got a fantastic tenant. And he was the complete opposite of that previous tenant. But the problem was for me, for probably the second half, was not the tenant, because he was great, he paid on time, no money issues, but it was actually the ongoing costs of upkeeping this property that wasn't growing in value. So I was paying about $6,000 in body corporate every year for a complex that didn't have any facilities. had a lift because I was on level 3, which was the top of this complex, but it didn't have any pools or anything like that, and that was growing. Also, interest rates were starting. I had also made a mistake of locking in a 4% interest rate because I was going on a pretty big Europe trip. So I was a bit nervous about, I've got all
There's
this
that
planned out.
anxiety coming out again.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got, I've kind of not going to be working for 6 months.
Yep.
And I knew that. So I locked in a pretty high interest rate. Then interest rates dropped to 2%. So I was still paying double interest rates with the body corporate, and then all the other fees that come on top of, of that of the property.
So the first tenant you evicted, is that how it played out, or did or you didn't renew their lease? No, you evicted them. So that took your first experience with a tribunal, or they just got out?
No, they actually just and also they didn't pay the last months of rent either. So they we had given them notice, but then they just up and left all the rubbish there. And
there's tenants behaving badly. Yep.
Yeah.
Alannah, big lesson number 2 for our audience here is around body corporate. So you're paying $6,000, which is $1,500 a quarter, and you've got a lift. So it goes to show how expensive lifts are to maintain. You said there was no other facilities, so no concierge, no pool, no gym,
tennis courts.
Yep. So you're a numbers girl. What you would have gone through those budgets? What were they spending your $6,000 a quarter on times 100 plus apartments?
The maintenance, man. Like insurance and it got to the point though, if I'm being honest, that I kind of just tuned out of it because it was just it was more depressing to read everything and get upset about it. And I was like, I can't change this. So that's when I really started to kind of think about what's next.
Analyze, the return on investment that you're getting, right? In terms of, so you're running your private rental accommodation business and it's not yielding you the cash flow that you had hoped it would. Now, so you talked about this trip to Europe, and then ultimately there's the no income. So you're thinking, what sort of got you into a position where you started to think about selling the property or doing something with the property?
I think so. I went to Europe. I did a big trip in 2019, just before COVID, so I was pretty lucky. And then that's when obviously it came back. I had no income for a bit because I just started as an accountant. And then really kindly I left banking, and then the accounting firm decided to make all their graduates redundant for a little bit, just temporarily until we were back in the office. So you can imagine, at the time, having this mortgage, I then had no income. Thankfully, I was working at ANZ Bank before that, and they actually asked me to come back. So that was fantastic. But I just started to think, I never want to be in that position again because I had almost spent all my savings in Europe. I was there for 6 months. And so, really lucky, I wouldn't take it back. I'm so glad I did that. But I came back with no money. My parents actually had to lend me money. And I never want to be in that position again. And so having at the point that if anything had happened when I had come back and I got made redundant from the accounting firm, I didn't have any money to support me. Had I not had my parents to back me up, I would have been in real dire straits. And that's when I started to think about, is this, having a property really worth it? And is my ego too big to acknowledge that I've probably made a mistake here and I probably should look at getting out? And that was, that's when the thinking started in that 2020 COVID period.
And who did you consult? And, you're having these thoughts. Did you speak to your dad, your mum? Did you start to test your idea with friends or colleagues who are also good with numbers or generally understanding of the property market?
I floated with Dad quite a bit. But my dad's probably, if I'm anxious, my dad's the opposite end of it. He's like, it's all right. Don't worry about it. It'll work out. And that sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's irritating. But I was also in a position that, because I was only I think I'm just trying to do quick maths, 22, 23 at the time. I'm in the position that I actually can't relate with my friends because none of my friends had actually bought a property. And so I was kind of, also, you don't want to say sharing all this stuff. And at the time, you also didn't want to say bragging that you got a property. But then when things are going badly, you're also this is embarrassing. I don't want to be telling people this. So I really internalized it, if I'm being honest, apart from my dad. And my mum's always given me really logical, sound advice. But I didn't see her as a financial person. I saw my dad as that person. So I didn't go to her as much as my dad.
Okay. And then after all of that sort of, I suppose, internal combusting that was going on with your anxiety and everything like that, you decided that it is time, and you decide to sell the property. And so how did you go about picking the agent to sell the property?
So that's another. So I promise you, my dad's actually a really smart person. He's just giving me some professional advice sometimes. So he actually helped me pick the agent too. So so everything went on pause obviously during COVID. So although I had kind of in 2020 thought, okay, like I need to cut my losses, that really paused for 2 years. Until after COVID. So after COVID, that was like end of 2022, I started looking, and I didn't really know, I'd never engaged a real estate agent before. So I did all the comparison, I think it was on just realestate.com, how you can compare agents in your area. And this is another probably really good learning is all the really, so there's in Werribee, there's like a really a Stown real estate agent, which, they're Ray White is in Werribee, and they wouldn't take the property. They're like, no, we don't think we can sell this. At the time, and they were really great. Like they came and helped me through things and ask this question, ask that question. And I will actually, if I ever sell a property there again, I would use them because they were so helpful. But they wouldn't list my property because they're like, we don't think we can do it justice for you.
But this is one of the biggest groups in the Werribee area, Ray White, right?
Yeah.
And they're telling you, we don't think we can put a successful campaign together. How many other units were available for sale in the block at that time, both officially or potentially even off market? Do you know?
There was probably, I'd say in the tens, it wasn't huge.
Yeah.
But in saying that, they had been on market for a long time. So it was nothing new to market. What Ray White, I remember they said, we can sell it, but we're going to charge you a flat fee. And it was ridiculously priced.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking? Ray White's saying no, and you're thinking, hang on a second, don't all agents want to sell something? And surely they've had an agent that said no. Take us to that moment.
Yeah, it was pretty strange. I was like, really? And then they kind of just gave me all the truths, the hard truths. And at the time, you're like, oh, that's ridiculous, and oh, that's crap. But then you kind of go away, and I was reflecting.
What are the truths?
Pretty much everything that you guys say. You got to be aware that 1 bedroom in Werribee, it's an apartment. It's and then they were showing me they're like, Alannah, we're selling this property, basically 5 k's down the road, and it's got land, and it's got backyard, and it's the same price that you're looking to sell. So they really walked me through. They were really awesome, I have to say, even though I didn't go with them.
Did you also say, but I've got a Sea-Doo that will also go with the sale?
I'll give you a Sea-Doo.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah, God.
Yeah.
No, okay.
That's tongue in cheek. That's not fair.
Yes, of course it was. Yeah.
So, Alannah, but then you've got to get on with it. So, what do you do next?
So then I kind of went through the list of, the rated or the recommended agents and found, I won't say his name, but someone in Point Cook who was very eager and sold the world, everything is going to do, creative campaigns or, marketing strategies. Came around to mum and dad's house, and my dad got sucked in big time. I think as well, it was interesting just the different approaches. Ray White were they weren't salesy. They were giving it the hard truths about if you want us to kind of work on this campaign, we are going to have to charge you up front because this is not going to be an easy sell, and we'll be really transparent. This is our fees, and we don't know if we can get the price you want. Whereas this other guy came in, same property, and was like, oh yeah, that's easy. We'll get it done. We'll get more. And as a kind of, I don't know how old I was at the time, mid-20s, you're like, oh, okay, great. He's saying he'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dad got sucked in a little bit with the sparkles as well. So he thought this agent's he's very, colourful, and he's he'll get people in, positive. Yeah.
Do you remember what the flat fee with Ray White was?
Yeah, from memory, it was between 10 and 12,000.
Gotcha. All right.
So it was a lot.
And you were trying to sell for how much?
I was trying to sell at the time for $390.
Okay. Which is 30 grand more than you paid.
Yeah. But then then I got the $30,000 on top of that, so I paid $330.
$330. All
yeah,
right. So you're trying to sell it to $390. Okay. So you got this person from Point Cook. So again, for those who are not in Victoria, that's a little out of area. It's close, but it's sort of out of area. And how experienced was this agent? Do you know? Was there how many years on the board?
Yeah, I probably should have asked that. He was pretty, I would say he was relatively experienced, but nowhere near it was a new agency as well, which is another red flag.
Yeah.
No kind of shop front. It was just like a little office thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All these, upon reflection, I think what Eddie said about experience absolutely applies to this. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, let's be fair to you. You're having a swing, and you're having a first swing, and you're in the arena, right? But so $390 you've listed it for. Tell us how it goes from here.
Not well. So it was on market for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And it got to the point that I had
Can I pause?
Yeah.
Audience, lesson number 4. It takes a long time to sell these. Days on market was 300. It was almost 500 days.
And especially when you've got 8 or 9 other listings and probably others who are trying to sell off market as well.
Yeah.
In terms of that particular block.
Right. Sorry, Alannah. I just had I'm wanting to make sure we land the plane on some of these really cool lessons for our community, painful lessons for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he started just playing funny buggers, really. He started kind of trying to confuse me, and even little things like Dad made it. He'd say we're not paying advertising. We'll pay it upon settlement once you sell the property. And he kind of started going back on that and bringing up things and charges and saying he's going to pull the campaign. And it was just really super stressful. Even threatened at one point not to give my keys back if I didn't pay the advertising. And even though I had it in writing that he said upon settlement and that kind of stuff, he's like, well, I've got your keys. So, just really dodgy. And yeah, I ended up selling it I made a loss from the sale price. But I was just done with it. I thought the opportunity cost of holding this deadweight asset, honestly, is not worth it. And like I said, my ego is not that big. I can admit that it probably wasn't the best decision. And if I hold it just to kind of keep my, being like, oh no, I'm not making a loss, it's going to cost me so much more in the future. So I sold it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's sunk cost bias, right? Ultimately, and loss aversion. So these are 2 very, very powerful human heuristics that you're competing against in your mind, hoping that one day someone will come along and offer you a fair price, or what you think is a fair price for the trauma. You've had the dodgy tenant, you've had the dodgy real estate agent, as part of that. So I can understand. But at the end of the day, you decide to cut your losses and it's sold. So, you don't have to tell us what was sold for. We heard it was under what you paid for it. So ultimately, there's the lesson. But you have, been paying debt down, and there is some proceeds from that sale coming to you. It was also your principal place of residence. So I'm assuming it was sold sort of roughly within that 6-year time frame, even though there was no capital gain because it was basically a little bit lower. So you're moving on. So we put that down as a learning chapter. What's next?
Yeah, so then I'm a pretty positive person, so I thought, you know what, I've had so many learnings, and it's kind of for saving. So I came up with, a pretty nice cash balance. And then I thought, okay, what's next? I had bought in between that, so the year before I actually sold it. So in 2023, so I sold the apartment in 2024, early 2024. So it was pretty recent actually. But in 2023, I had settled on my first proper house, which I'm currently in. And that's where then obviously, so I had 2 mortgages. And so that's when kind of, the ongoing cost of the apartment just wasn't worth it. Because I was.
Yep. So you take the proceeds of that and you drop those into your offset account.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So Alannah, tell us about the principal place of residence that you purchased and the contrasting experience that you had.
Yeah, well, it's probably it was another off the plan. But the difference was it was in a suburb. So I live in Alannah North,
Yeah.
and that was the suburb that I really wanted to live in. And it was just I wanted a townhouse. It's just me. So the difference was, although it was off the plan, it was in the area that I really wanted, and it's on a block that. Although there's other townhouses around, it's not like it's all built up around me. It's in a really old section of Altona North.
Yeah.
So although I probably made some mistakes off the plan and that kind of stuff again, I hope I learned some lessons.
Would you have done that again now? Because you've been listening to the podcast for a little while, and you know some of the, I guess, the philosophies that we have. Looking back in the revision mirror, was it still a good decision, the off the plan, the one you're living in?
Yeah, because I'm living in it, so I don't have any intention of selling it within 5 years. So for me, this is like a kind of a 5 to 10 year living situation.
Yeah.
So it was never about making quick money off this house. Like this is, for me, it's perfect. Like it's everywhere I need to be. And I honestly couldn't afford to be in the area I am had I not bought a townhouse.
That's the in terms of the buyer's decision quadrant, you had your budget. That was the amount that you could afford. And then you've had to compromise on land size or type of property because you wanted to get into a particular market. But when you're going through that process, and the lessons that you had about buying something that's, quite a way out and not a lot of amenity and all of that associated around it, what other things did you think about in that buying decision in terms of location selection, and then starting to think about what you've learned around scarcity value and those types of things? Take us through some of the thinking you had there.
Yeah, so I actually looked at another townhouse, and it was another off the plan, kind of a couple k's down the road, and it was completely different. So where I am is there's only it's all built up, so they can't build anymore unless they knock obviously houses down.
Yep.
The development down the road is on off land, so it's empty land. I think it was an old tip actually. So there's a couple of learnings in that. I had looked at that, and it was also very different sales approaches. So the lady that kind of helped me with this house was not pushy at all. She was really helpful and was like, let me, kind of get the information I needed. The other lady was super high pressure, emotional, and then also a little bit belittling because I'm younger, so that was kind of for me as well when I was looking at the two areas, or the two different spots.
Because how many townhouses are in each? Like, is that something you also took into consideration? Like, are you a block of 4, a block of 6, or was the others a block of 10, 12 townhouses, or?
Yeah, this development is still like in the tens.
Okay.
Where I am, but where the other place was probably in the hundreds, or if not thousands.
Okay.
So again, I think if I had my time again, I probably would have bought maybe somewhere in a block of 2 or something like that.
Yep.
But in saying that, there wasn't many that I could afford. So again, it was just like if I want to live in the area that I want to live. My income also was lower at the time, so it was like, I don't have that many options available to me, and I kind of had to pounce the one that felt right.
So what's the footprint? How much land have you got?
It's not that big. I think it's roughly, 180.
180 to 200, and 2 bedroom,
2 bedroom, 2 bathroom.
Yeah. Okay, and 1 car or garage and 1 off street as well.
So it's 1 garage. And then I've got on-street parking.
On-street as well. Okay.
For our interstate listeners, you've moved closer to the city. You're actually now at a beach that people do want to swim at. You've got the train that can get you in, and you're living in a place that's more appropriate for the suburb. So,
you happy to give us an idea of price on that one?
Yeah, it was $640. I bought it for
$640. Okay, beautiful.
So everything sounds pretty cool at this point. Alannah, you've resettled, you've got a good place, you've learnt the experience, and then someone gives you a random phone call claiming to help high income earners, and that's a coincidence because you're a high income earner, so they were there to help you. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I got this random phone call. I remember I was in my study, and I can't remember if the lady opened, but she did say we help high income earners with tax savings. And I said, I said I'm not interested initially. And then she was like, before you hang up, if you can I just ask you some qualifying questions? And I was like, I felt bad, because she seemed like a nice lady on the phone. So I just answered her questions. And then she was really positive, and she was like, you should really look into this. And, and then she started talking about she can send, she's got her team of educators, and they just come and educate people about what they're entitled to and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought, I was more like, oh, whatever, I'm trying to get off the phone. So I said, yeah, that's fine. Send me a message. And then that was, I kind of wish I wasn't so nice. I should have just hung up when I wanted to. And fast forward, I've got this educator who had come into my house, and very forceful, just like very like pushy and like, oh yeah, we'll come here, like we'll come at this time, like, great to meet you. We're just, allegedly educating. That's all his job was, apparently. It was just to help people like me understand property.
That's very how good is that?
I think that's fair and reasonable. Not.
Okay, so it's a spruiker. So where did they want you to buy, Alannah?
So first of all, it started off in, he was very quick to give me my borrowing capacity after 5 minutes of me telling him my income and how much money I owed on this house. So he had done all, and he's, going on about his formulas and it was just, the red flags are there. And he was very keen on Queensland. And he kept on going. And I thought this was really funny at the time as well. He's like, the Brisbane Olympics, that's just going to boost the price. And I remember saying to my dad, why on earth would the Olympics boost the price? Like that, like what, in 2032, like who cares about the Olympics? But they were just really good. And again, I had red flags, like the red flags are waving really fast. But he was really keen on Burrum Heads in Queensland, which is nowhere near Brisbane, but also Redbank Plains, which is, luckily I work with people in Brisbane. So this is when I was asked, like, where is Redbank Plains? Like, oh, don't buy there.
It's the Werribee distance to the city.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that were the two areas that he was pushing really hard on, is Redbank Plains and Burrum Heads, which I had never heard of either.
But all new stock.
Let's make something really clear to our audience. Professional property specialists don't ring you at night. They don't come to your house. They usually want you to come to their office rather than coming to your house. So if anyone's ringing you and wanting to be the knight in shining armor for you or the saviour, make no mistake, they are a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I think, we're unpacking what that looks like live here.
But just picking up on that point, Alannah, they're obviously quite convincing in a lot of what they say. So, normally they'd say, well, do you realise that you can save tax? Yes. Well, here's a rough idea of what that saving would be. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Would you like to have that money in your back pocket every week or month? And yes. So at some point there was a lot of agreement going on, because that's the way in which they operate in terms of this positive reinforcement approach, this neuro, sort of approach around getting into your mind about, and we've always said 70% of what they say actually has some foundation in truth, but it's the 30% and it's the finished product that they sell you or whatever that does all the damage. And so how did you get to politely saying no and the meeting's over?
Well, how close were you to saying yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's more what Bryce is saying. So I think spoke to my dad. He need to start doing that, actually. And
not for property anyway.
yeah, not for property. Yeah, I actually still talk to my dad. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just, again, it was like exactly what you're saying, Ben. It was like very much like, oh, don't you, like, you do this, or like, don't you want to do this? And Dad goes, oh, it makes sense. Like, and I think it is. It's because most of what they say is actually like correct. And then, but all of a sudden, it was like pushing me onto like these, new developments and like, wanting me to kind of send over a deposit. Oh, this is going to go this weekend. It was just like high pressure. And then I've also picked up on like very much kind of making me feel like I was like an emotional little girl. Like, if you're like, don't be emotional about it. It's just all, it's a business. You can't be emotional about houses. And I was actually questioning, like I was looking at emails just kind of last night to reflect on, the journey. And I actually questioned him at the time, saying, surely, like, I actually think that there's better investment opportunities in Greater Geelong. If I can't afford Greater Melbourne at the moment, like, with my income, can we look there? Like, you said you got a team of buyers that can look. And he was like, it sounds like you're being really emotional about this. You need to take the emotion out. And that's kind of when I was like, mate, you're absolutely full of it.
Yeah, he's trying to sell you rather than educate you, as he was told. I'm an educator. Well, educate me about the difference between Geelong and Redbank Plains for new stock versus stock that's been there for 20 or 30 years, where the land asset ratio is real, as opposed to the new stuff coming on there, where effectively the build cost is going to take up about 70% of the value and 30% is in the land. You do not want to be in that ratio, or it's probably 60-40, but the wrong way around.
So how close, Alannah? How close to signing?
I had started filling in the deposit paper. And then I thought, what am I doing? Like, because I think I was just like because I was out of the property market for a little bit, and I was thinking, geez, like I need to get back into investing. Like I'm not doing anything with my money. So it's kind of like a little bit of myself rushing myself. Like it was, and then he was pressuring me. And so I took my mum away actually for a Mother's Day weekend. And I was going through the emails again. I was in Port Campbell actually. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like you've already made this mistake. Like you want to make sure that your next move is really like researched. It's based on data. You want to be an expert, or if you're not an expert, like get someone who is. And that's when I thought, no, I'm going to start researching. I'm not doing this again. And yeah, I stopped just replying to him. And then all of a sudden he was very nice to me again, and apparently I wasn't as emotional anymore, but that's when I kind of changed my mindset.
Yeah, good on you.
Not as emotional anymore. Wow. So you then, so what did the education look like? You've obviously stumbled across some podcasts, including ours. Did you read some books? Like, did you get some virtual or real mentors? What did that look like?
Yeah, I actually went and saw a financial advisor, and just about, generally. And they actually gave me really good advice. And she said, I can't advise you on property, but, you should be doing your own research as well. Like I can only kind of advise you on shares. And so then I did research on podcasts, stumbled across the Property Couch. I did some other like readings, and then I stumbled on your books as well. And it just worked out perfectly that I had binged the early episodes, but then I was going to Bali with my sister for 2 weeks. So I used it as a kind of just a reset. And so we had a lot of time in the car, and what Bali's like, traffic, constantly walking. So I used that time to like AirPods on and really just kind of be a student again, which I love. And by the pool, I'm never a kind of person who just reads by the pool. I spent 4 days reading by the pool. And it was financial books. And so that's how I kind of was like, okay, I feel I'm knowledgeable now about property, but I'm also aware that I'm not an expert, and I think this is the time that I need to engage a professional.
So I'm going to be very careful to ask you not to make this an advertisement for us, but you obviously came and sought out our advice, and you got a plan. Why did you get a plan?
I think because I hadn't done that, and it's very strange for me because I'm a really considered person. Like I plan out everything. And I hadn't done that for my investment, which is crazy, in my future. And so I really just thought, okay, like I needed something to, like, what's my goal? What am I trying to achieve here? And what I need to do from now until whenever period to make that happen. And I spoke to a member of your team, and like she was really, really awesome and approachable, and explained everything to me. And then and you know what it was as well? I actually cut out all opinions. I didn't talk to anyone about it. I just did what I thought was right, and I did it based on what I had read, not just from your materials, other materials as well. And I just totally cut out external noise, and people, unless they were like professional and I could see their qualifications, I weren't listening to their opinion, basically.
You spoke with Amanda. Did you realise that she had an episode on the podcast, and did you listen to that one?
No, I didn't actually. No.
But it's how did it make you feel when you started to see all of those numbers and projections and seeing all of the sophistication that's what professional planning looks like, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is about your lifestyle by design. Was it sort of like tell me how it? Yeah, can you describe it and how it made you feel when you started seeing all of those pieces come together?
Yeah, for me, it just made me feel. I was like, oh, okay, I don't need 5 properties in the next 3 years. Like, I don't, okay, this is reasonable. I can still afford to buy a new car because I've driven a pretty old car, but also I can still live. But at the same time, it was actually a bit of a kind of moment that I thought, I actually need to reduce my spending as well. Like, it was a good wake up call for me. I was spending a lot of money on rubbish as well. So it kind of did the both ends. It's like, okay, I need to check myself a little bit. Like, I don't need to be spending this much on clothes and that kind of stuff. But then also I do have a relatively good income. I can afford to still enjoy myself, but be conscious and be aware of what you're spending it on, and what you're saving for.
Yeah.
So you end up buying a property, Alannah. Tell us, was it off the plan?
No.
No.
Never again. Yeah.
So tell us about what you bought.
Yeah, so we bought, so I also used a buyer's agent, which I would recommend, absolutely. And like whether it's through you guys or, another really awesome agency, they would just took all the like thinking away from me. I'm not the expert. I don't know how to negotiate. Like I work in tech. I don't work in property. But also just kept me informed and like was really real with me as well. Like I wasn't going to be able to afford a house in South Yarra. So these are the options and sent me all the information and spoke through it with me. I ended up buying a 1970s house in Greater Geelong or just outside of Geelong. Really neat, like it's a nice looking house. Inside is older, but like doesn't need any work. And yeah, Krista was awesome. Like she was so good. Kept me informed all along the way. And then even just like my borrowing capacity, like throwing to the spruiker who was saying that my borrowing capacity was like 750 or 700. I can't remember what he said, but I actually like my mortgage broker was like, Alannah, like your maximum spend is 600. Like you cannot spend one more dollar. And I thought, geez, and my income has risen since those two conversations. So yeah, and helped me also the buyer's agent set up all my property management recommendations and got that ball rolling. I had a tenant in there for day one settlement, all that kind of stuff, which was awesome.
Alannah, you're resilient. You're like I've loved every moment of this story because you're anxious, self-confessed anxious, and still kept on stepping up to the plate, right? And then had two little taps on the snout. One was a lived experience, one was almost another lived experience, and then you still kept going, and you're incredibly determined to get it done. And then it's nice that the story looped around because you wanted to go. You wanted to go to Geelong anyway because you saw opportunity there, and so you've ended up being there, which is good. But I think one of the things that I think, well, a couple of things. You've learnt lots of lessons early in life, and it'd be great for you to talk to that. But I think another lesson from this for our audience is you are savvy. You know numbers. You're a qualified accountant. You've told us here that you present to ASX boards. And yet, when it came to your own personal portfolio build, you ended up dancing with the devil. So can you talk to those 2 points around, learnt a lot of lessons and also don't be fooled by the fact that your background is numbers anyway. This stuff can still happen.
Yeah, I think even though it sounds strange, I probably wouldn't take back the first property because I learned so much, and I'm so grateful that I learned all those lessons at 19 to 24 versus learning those lessons at 60. So I'm really grateful for that. But I'm also, the second part of it is when someone is selling you something that you think's too good to be true, it probably is. Most of the time it is. And I just trust yourself. Like there was all these red flags in my gut saying this is not right. This is too good to be true. But some people, and it's the way they work, I think, is like, oh no, you're not experienced. Like, this is how it works. This is the real world. And even you're thinking, this doesn't sound right, but I'm not a property professional. So who am I to kind of say that's wrong? And I think, yeah, there's just that's my thing. If something's too good to be true, most of the time it is. And they are masters at selling anything, and they will convince you. And like I had asked questions and they had an answer for everything had an answer for all, and so you're kind of like, oh god, okay, they must know what they're talking about. Like there's nothing that I've stumped them with. So yeah, just be aware, I think, and do your own research. Try to become an expert yourself as well.
So Alannah, Bryce has done the call out to have people come on the summer series. And before we hit record today, you said we're also asking for a balance of women and men to come on and share their experiences. And we are so thankful that someone with your backstory and experience has come on. Obviously, a younger person who's also, making their own way in life and, in terms of planning to become what you plan to become. So, you're absolute credit to yourself and obviously to your family and your parents who have raised you so well. I'm going to hand the mic over to you now. As what's the last thing what's something we haven't asked you that you want our community to think about when it comes to taking these important steps in life and building this level of financial security that you're on your path to do? And then as part of that, how are your anxiety levels now compared to what they were, say, 5 or so years ago?
Yeah, I think my advice, and I say this to my friends who ask me for advice, ironically, is just like take your time. Like nothing is that, if someone's trying to rush you, it's actually like pause, and that's, like you're spending over $500,000. Like that is a lot of money to be making a big decision on. And so make sure it's really, you've thought everything through. Don't listen to people's opinions. And I say it in the same way, like I wouldn't take running advice from someone who's not a runner. Do have that same advice with finances. Like if someone's not a professional and like, it's Uncle Jim on Christmas lunch, like grain of salt, be polite, but like do your own research. And I forgot your second question, Ben.
Well, just now that you've sort of got a roadmap, you've got your plan and you're living your lifestyle by design. How are the anxiety levels?
Yeah, the anxiety levels are much better. I think as well, because even, for example, this is a really good example, like I knew that after the property was purchased in Geelong that I would have a bit of a dip in savings and I was going to be tight for a little bit, but we had planned for that. So Amanda and Bede had actually planned for that. So even, historically I would have panicked and probably, had a bit of a cry and probably sold something irrationally to get some money in the bank. But like I knew that was part of the plan. And then, I got, bonus period comes and then, okay, yeah, we're back on track. And so my anxiety levels, and even I've had unexpected expenses this year. Like I've in 2 months I just spent $10,000 on things I hadn't planned for, totally outside my control, with my car and my pet. So, but I was okay. Like I managed because I had a plan in place. And I think for me that was really pivotal. Like the fact that I could do those two things after just purchasing the property, and I'm okay still. A little bit probably behind the plan, but I'm still on track. So, yeah, that's what it's all about.
Beautiful.
Alannah, I'm incredibly impressed by you. You are young, professional, female. Thank you for when I said we need some ladies to come on. Thank you for putting your hand up. And look, you should. Your future is very, very bright. You're articulate. You're considered. You're strategic. You keep putting your hat in the ring, and you are a lifelong learner, and that makes you good to be around. And I don't think it's ironic that your friends are asking you for advice, because I promise you the stuff that you learnt between 19 and 24 is the best stuff that they should be hearing. So you are well and truly in the game for giving that advice. But look, wonderful story. I cannot begin to tell you how exciting it is for Ben and I to have just this little part of your story where we were able to help you course correct and buy the right property. And on behalf of everyone on the Property Couch and all of the Summer Series listeners, thanks for being really transparent today and sharing your story.
Thank you. That's a pleasure. It's a real honour to be actually even considered. So thank you.
Oh no, absolute pleasure. Thank you. All right, Ben. So what an incredible young woman. What I loved about that is there was so many layers that you and I can quickly reflect on now. But one of the biggest things for Alannah was she was self-described as a very anxious person, right? In a lot of the things that she's been doing in her life, and yet she's navigated that story and those property hits, and they didn't want to sell the property, and then just to come on and absolutely smoke the conversation like you did. Because just a little reminder to our audience that every single Summer Series person that comes on, Ben, at the beginning, before you and I push record, they've just got this little anxious glow about them, don't they?
Yes, they do. They do.
But we're proud of them. They're showing courage, and Alannah was no exception. But free jet skis, Ben, help from Dad, we covered it all.
Yeah, we did. And I think, there's a lot of things that sort of stand out to me. One is that she's, her dad and mum, it sort of inspired her to take action early, first property at 19. So that was good. But obviously asset selection, who you're getting your advice from, enthusiastic amateurs versus getting the right advice. I mean, I circle back now to the work that she's done with the team, and she's now on track. So for mine, we talk about, what was the two types of guests we wanted to have throughout this summer series. It was really around landing the plane, and ultimately overcoming obstacles and challenges. Well, this one, the plane could land really early for Alannah. She could potentially, she's in such a good position for a single female who's powering through. So it just is a good news story all around. And hey, Bryce, success leaves clues. So, did a property plan also a more user. So uses the more platform to help her manage her money. So I think, there's a couple of clues in there for me.
Oh, I agree, Ben. And 19-year-old. First time she bought a property was when she was 19. I mean, Ben, I bought my first one at 23. But 19, that is super impressive. And look, I just loved every little bit about that story. I think there was so many little gems and big gems along the way around, 1-bedroom apartment in Werribee, versus, a bit of dirt.
Yeah.
She's super happy where she is now. Had to sell that property eventually at a loss. But, well done, Alannah. I'm impressed by your tenacity. I'm impressed by your courage. And I'm impressed that you kept getting back on the horse and really setting yourself up for what is now, an incredible future. She's got a lot to be excited about.
It's a testament to focus and, to your point, determination in terms of continuing on, even though she had some tough experiences, some adverse experience with the tenant as well. So great news story. Okay, so there we are, mate. We're sort of one down on summer series. I just also wanted to take this minute. It's still the start of December. So there's a couple of important messages we just want to hit on. The first one is Christmas stockings. If you want a good book in your Christmas stocking, we think the 3K a week book is absolutely worthwhile going after. So you can get access to that by clicking on the details in the show description here in terms of order that, and you can get that book for some Christmas stockings over. And remember, it's free from us. It's a free book from us. You just need to pay for the postage. So please look at that. And
I've had some good feedback, Ben. I've had some people come up to me and said they've read the book and they go, "Look, it's really easy to read," and they have it with this really upward inflection. I'm like, okay, but look, just to remind folks who haven't got their hands on that book, Ben and I deliberately wrote a very technical subject in a way that's easy to follow along. So lots of stories, lots of anecdotes, and we actually take you on a journey. And a little sneak peek, Ben. We take you on a journey how to arrive at Everest and how we get you to base camp, and we really bring that analogy all the way through the book. So technically rich, but we do it in a way that's really approachable. And I've been getting a feel of that lately, Ben. And I must admit that was an intention that you and I set out to do in the first. Like, you don't want to pick up a book about a subject that wouldn't be out of place in a university degree on commerce, right? You want to be able to still be able to follow along at home. So there you go.
No, well said. Hey, so just on the property side of things as we close out, a couple of messages. The market is obviously still, pretty strong. And I was just looking at our numbers just to give you some context, Bryce. We've got over $129 million of people with pre-approvals. Right? So I'm talking to those people who listen along, who are clients of ours who might have their pre-approval. The stock levels on market still suggest that there's potentially reasonable buying in December. Now, if some of those properties have passed in, this is also the time where vendors also want to have closure through the end of the year. So we just want to also just remind people that message. We'll do it probably a couple of times during summer series just to give them that reminder. And then finally, I realise that we're still coming into the festive season, but if you want to launch into 2026 strongly, always say get a plan in place in terms of what you're doing as well. And it's not a bad time if everyone else is focused on partying and you're not.
It's actually a good time of the year.
It's time of the year. It's definitely the lower season, so we've got some availability there. But if you're thinking about some of those opportunities, then reach out to us. We'll be happy to help.
We'd definitely be happy to help. So, folks, it's a good time to reflect on that as we get into a really busy season. And for a lot of people, they're really tired. But it's you want to start 2026 strongly, because real estate is not one of those things you go, I want to buy something today. No, there's lead time. There's lots of lead time.
Yeah, you want to do the prep. You don't want to do just the buying.
Yeah.
We see in some of the summer series, the people who did just the buying and didn't do the research, the due diligence, they're the ones who we're also learning their past mistakes as well.
Well said. Hey, Alannah, thank you. Wonderful interview. Thank you for taking the time to share your life lessons, and you have a wonderful future ahead of you, and we're excited to be just but a very, very small thread on that journey. So thank you, Alannah. Thank you to you, Ben, as well. Folks, wherever you are this summer, we hope you're relaxing, or hope you're getting prepped ready to relax, as well as prepping for 2026, Ben. But until next week, Ben.
I'm looking forward to next week, but remember, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.